As you can see from the title, I fully expect some of you guys to roll your eyes at some of the things we're going to be talking about in this video, but as long as there's at least a portion of you guys who find these to be interesting, then mission accomplished. Here are small little coincidences along with a few other things that might seem pretty insignificant, but not to me. I want to start off with something scary that I found out about Michael Jordan's 1993 postseason run. On June 20th, 1993, which was Game 6 of the NBA Finals versus the Phoenix Suns, Jordan scored 33 points. Then, 33 days later, on July 23rd, 1993, his father James tragically passed away. So why do I bring this up? Well, think about what I just said. The difference between the day Jordan scored 33 points in that series-clinching game to capture his third title, and the day Jordan's dad passed away is exactly 33 days. We had no idea that there was an unsettling clue in the box score that foretold the fate of Jordan's father, a box score from a game that took place on Father's Day of all days. And let's not forget the jersey number of Jordan's partner in crime. I don't know why, but this little tidbit freaked me out for some reason. But that's not all. If you were to look up the total amount of points Jordan scored in that entire 1993 postseason, the answer will shock you. Fast forward to this most recent NBA Finals, it's actually kind of surprising how many weird coincidences are littered throughout this one. As we all know, the Dallas Mavericks were able to avoid a sweep in Game 4, but honestly, we should have expected that, because it looks like the Celtics winning in 5 games was apparently meant to be all along. Game 5 took place on June 17th, which just so happened to be the same date the Celtics won their last championship back in 2008. But that's not even the craziest part when it comes to the date. 4 Celtics legends have passed away relatively recently: Bill Russell, John Havlicek, Sam Jones, and Bill Walton. And there's a reason why I named them off in that order, as their jersey numbers represent an eerie connection to this past 2024 championship: 6, 17, 24, with Bill Walton's jersey number representing the fact that they got the job done in Game 5.
Banner number 18 has been secured. The Celtics are NBA champions.
Sticking with Bill Walton for a second, he died about 4 months ago on May 27th, which was the same day the Boston Celtics advanced to the NBA Finals, beating a former member of that famous '86 team, Rick Carlisle, to get there, a team that Bill was also a part of. And if we were to point out the jersey number of the best player of the team that the Celtics ended up facing in the finals, we would be able to squeeze out a couple more interesting connections, given the fact that Bill Walton was the 1977 Finals MVP, and that this current Celtics team just won the championship during the NBA's 77th season. Speaking of a jersey that has the number 77 on it, Klay Thompson wore this as some sort of a joke a couple years ago to make fun of the fact that he didn't make the NBA's 75th anniversary team, insinuating that he's only the 77th best player of all time. The NBA listed 76 players due to a tie. We didn't think much of this at the time, but now we can look back at this and wonder if there was more to this clip than we originally thought. Now it looks like Chris Bosh joining the Miami Heat might have been foreshadowed as well. Back in 2006, the Miami Heat visited the White House to celebrate their first championship in franchise history with President George W. Bush. And as Pat Riley presented him with a jersey, I couldn't help but to be reminded of Chris Bosh, because it had the number 1 on it. And then it became really reminiscent of Chris Bosh when they showed the back of it, as their last names are only off by 1 letter. Remember, Bosh was on the Raptors at the time and wasn't gonna join Miami for another 3 or 4 years. When I saw this, my knee-jerk reaction was to share it with you guys, but then I thought maybe I shouldn't, because I was afraid you guys would think it's stupid. But apparently I wasn't the only one who noticed it, thinking that this is just too much of a coincidence, especially considering other teams gave him a different number. Of all teams and of all numbers, how crazy is that? It was almost as if they placed a little breadcrumb for us to follow. Do you guys remember when the Phoenix Suns traded Chris Paul to the Washington Wizards in exchange for Bradley Beal in the summer of 2023, even though he was traded again less than 2 weeks later to the Golden State Warriors for Jordan Poole? Well, during that brief period of time he was a Wizard, fans were losing their minds over an old tweet that was dug up from about a year and a half earlier. In early 2022, the Phoenix Suns official Twitter account said, "Chris Paul, you are a Wizard." Obviously, we know what they meant at the time, but it was still a tweet that held the answers superstars of the future. And think about it, the Suns had nothing to do with the Wizards trading him to Golden State immediately after. The only thing they could control was where they sent him, and it looks like that was apparently their plan for a long time, which is why it's kinda hard for me to take what CP3 said here seriously, as part of me believes that players don't get as blindsided about these sort of things as much as they want us to think they do.
And I see this potential blockbuster deal between you and Bradley Beal that may take you from Phoenix to Washington and vice versa. I was surprised. What are your first thoughts on that?
I was surprised too. I found out on the plane yesterday flying here for this.
I don't believe it.
You know, in this league, anything can happen, so you just figure out what's next.
You literally found out on the plane.
Maybe I know more than you think I do, Mark, huh?
Now, we didn't need a tweet to get an idea where Brent Barry's career would come to an end. All we had to do was look at the Barrys that came before him.
I played just 1 year in Houston. I had signed for 2 years to play in Houston. That's where all the Barrys get buried. My dad finished in Houston, John finished in Houston, and I did. We should put some, like,
Plaques.
some sort of gravestones across the street in the empty lot. But
I'm sure we would have loved to see Michael Jordan's career end with the Bulls right after beating the Utah Jazz in 1998, because it would have been yet another thing he and Kobe have in common, with their very last game being against Utah. But I guess it's okay, because with Jordan choosing to come back with the Wizards, we ended up getting a full circle moment out of it. You see, Jordan made his NBA debut all the way back in 1984 in a game against Washington, who were called the Bullets at the time. Fast forward to 2003, his very last game in the NBA would be against Philadelphia, but it was as a member of the Washington Wizards, a fact that did not go unnoticed.
The first one came in October of 1984 against Washington, 1,250 games, regular and postseason later, the finale for Michael Jordan for Washington in Philadelphia.
And now that I think about it, yeah, he did ruin what would have been an interesting parallel he could have shared with Kobe by both having their careers come to an end against the Jazz, but they ended up sharing something else in common as soon as Kobe knocked down a pair of free throws at the very end of his last game, as that's exactly the same way Jordan ended his career, on a pair of free throws, essentially making up for it. Scottie Pippen also had his career play out as if somebody had written it. If you didn't know, Pippen was actually drafted by the Seattle Supersonics, and it all came full circle when his final game ended up being in Seattle against the Sonics on February 2nd, 2004. That wasn't the Bulls' last game of that season, but it was for Pippen, as injuries got the best of him and had to call it quits midway through the season. Interesting timing for his career to have to stop.